Oh, faithfully delivering value and interpreting great books worldwide. Hi there, this is Ixima Talk. In our last episode, we covered how Spain became Spain, part 1. Today, we're tackling the first part of the next episode. As we mentioned, under Charles V, Spain's borders expanded massively, becoming the first empire where the sun never set. Meanwhile, he faced loads of challenges, and those eventually led to the Spanish Empire's decline. In this next part, I'll share how that unfolded and how Spain, after becoming second-rate, struggled to transform and finally joined the developed nations. Like the previous episode, this one's split into 3 sections. Part 4, Crisis and Decline. Part 5, Reform and Civil War. Part 6, Moving from Authoritarian Rule to Democratic Transition. All right, now we're diving into Part 4, Crisis and Decline. In 1556, Charles V abdicated, and his first son Philip II took the throne.
His reign lasted over 40 years, a key phase when Spain shifted from peak to decline.
On the surface, Spain was still surging ahead. Right after taking power, Philip II faced threats from France. Back then, French King Henry II tried to dominate Italy and push Spain out. Philip II stood firm, won 2 big battles, and forced Henry to sign a peace deal abandoning Italy. Then, in 1571, at the Battle of Lepanto, Spain's navy defeated the Ottomans, halting their expansion. Post-war, Spain's fleet rolled the seas, hauling gold and silver from the Americas non-stop. In 1580, Philip II conquered Portugal, gaining colonies like Morocco, Angola, and Brazil, expanding Spain's empire further. Also under Philip II, Madrid became the capital. He ran things from his palace there, making decisions and sending officials to enforce orders. This hugely boosted central control, giving the king unprecedented power. Spain was at its zenith, and Philip II was arguably the world's most powerful monarch. But beneath that glorious surface, 3 major crises were eating away at the empire. So what were those 3 crises? First, external threats, mainly from England and France. Soon after Philip II took the throne, Elizabeth I ascended to the English crown. He was also a brilliant monarch, actively expanding outward, naturally toward the wealthy Americas, which clashed with Spain. In 1588, Philip II assembled the Armada to invade England, but it got defeated by English forces. Then, an unexpected Atlantic hurricane wrecked its main warships. From then on, Spain fell behind in the colonial race in America, and North America gradually came under English control. The conflict with France ran deeper. The Habsburgs ruled Spain, and Germany extended its reach into Italy, putting France in a vice. Successive French kings worked to break this encirclement. From the early 17th century, the 2 nations battled for over 100 years, in wars like the 30 Years' War and the War of Spanish Succession, drawing in much of Europe. Well, both drained their strength. Spain weakened constantly, and years of war sparked the second major crisis, the financial crisis. Philip II had to borrow from banks for war funds, but debts came due with no money to repay. What then? Just default, huh? During Philip II's reign alone, he defaulted on debts 4 times. When his grandson Philip IV ruled, the Spanish government declared bankruptcy multiple times. This tanked Spain's credit rating, with Italian bankers, Europe's top financiers then, making loans harder to get. In contrast, Britain's credit-worthy government scored loans on sweet terms.
So yeah, Spain's empire was still bigger than Britain's, but in global financing power, no contest.
You might wonder, didn't Spain control America's silver mines? How could it still be broke? True, over 150 years from 1503 to 1660, Spain looted 18,600 tons of silver from America, 80% of global output. In theory, Spain should have been rolling in it, but to keep a global empire, government spending was insane. Much of that silver vanished into a money pit. Plus, Spain's industries lagged, so it imported everything from basics to luxuries. For instance, Spain imported tea, porcelain, and silk from China yearly, which cost silver. Stats show over 40% of Spain's American silver flowed to China. Long term, how could the government not go broke? So, to ease the financial crisis, Philip IV had no choice but to keep hiking taxes.
And this triggered fierce public backlash.
In 1640, Catalonia in northeast Spain and Portugal in the southwest both erupted in massive revolts. Philip IV barely quashed the first, but couldn't handle the second, leading to Portugal's independence. Counting from when Philip II conquered it to when Philip IV lost it, Spain's rule over Portugal lasted just 60 years. The third major crisis for the Spanish Empire was in the realm of ideas. In the 17th and 18th centuries, the French Enlightenment was booming, with figures like Voltaire and Rousseau spreading ideas of liberty, democracy, and equality widely. And meanwhile, England established a constitutional monarchy through the bourgeois revolution and produced thinkers like Burke and Adam Smith. So what was Spain up to during that same time? Successive Spanish kings preached the divine right of kings and styled themselves as defenders of the Roman Catholic Church. In their view, the Enlightenment and constitutional monarchy were like monsters to be fiercely guarded against. Kings also used the Inquisition to crack down on so-called heretical ideas, making it hard for Enlightenment thought to reach Spain for ages. A Swedish diplomat noted that the Pyrenees became a barrier between Spain and the civilized world, leaving Spanish intellectual life stagnant and minds trapped in absolutism. Thus, Spain missed its chance for transformation. By the mid to late 18th century, Spain had fallen way behind European powers like Britain and France. A classic example is in 1740, when Anglo-Dutch forces seized Gibraltar, choking off the Mediterranean's access to the Atlantic.
Since then, that key strategic spot has stayed under British control.
Spain's overseas trade was completely choked, and worse was coming. In 1804, Napoleon crowned himself Emperor of France. 4 years later, French troops captured Madrid, forcing Spanish King Ferdinand VII to surrender the throne to Napoleon's brother, Joseph Bonaparte. In 1813, Napoleon was defeated by the anti-French coalition. Joseph fell, Ferdinand VII was restored, and French rule lasted just 5 years. It deeply impacted Spanish history. For one, the French army's harsh rule ignited Spanish national consciousness. In May 1808, the Spanish people rose up against the French army, who suffered consecutive defeats with about 18,000 surrendering. This was Napoleon's first battlefield defeat. By November, Napoleon regrouped and crushed the uprising. From then on, he couldn't slack off. Stationing a third of his troops in Spain weakened his other fronts. This planted the seeds for Napoleon's ultimate downfall. In 1813, Napoleon was defeated by the anti-French coalition, restoring the Spanish monarchy. But while French rule ended, revolutionary ideals of liberty, democracy, and equality awakened Spanish elites who spread these to colonies, fertilizing the soil for American independence movements. Spain's rule over the Americas was brutal. Colonists plundered gold and silver while trafficking enslaved Africans to labor there, causing deep suffering. In 1810, Mexicans launched the first independence uprising, quickly spreading across the Americas. Chile, Peru, Venezuela, Argentina, and others declared independence one after another. By Ferdinand VII's time, when he died, Spain only held on to a few colonies like Cuba and the Philippines.
In 1898, rising America challenged Spain. The Spanish-American War cost Spain nearly all remaining colonies.
The once dominant Spanish Empire entered the 20th century as a second-rate power. Now my story moves to part 5, Reform and Civil War. First, reform. Spain's humiliating defeat forced it to confront its weaknesses. By then, Britain and France had undergone 2 industrial revolutions. Tech advanced, economies boomed, with Germany and Russia catching up fast. Spain remained agricultural, backward production, industrial imports, low workforce quality. By 1900, 66.5% of Spaniards were illiterate. Clearly, Spain had fallen to second-tier status in Europe.
To recover, Spain's government invited foreign investment, encouraging British and French factories.
Simultaneously supporting domestic businesses, after over a decade, Basque iron mining and steel and Catalonian textiles and shipbuilding flourished, turning both into Spain's industrial hubs. In 1914, World War I broke out, and Spain stayed neutral, bringing new development opportunities. Britain and France imported timber from Spain for building frontline fortifications and steel for making weapons. Spain's agricultural products and textiles were also essential.
Military supplies!
By the end of World War I, Spain had established a basic industrial system with rapid growth in the industrial workforce. The number of the working class had exceeded 1 million. While the economy grew, Spanish art also achieved brilliant accomplishments. Especially Picasso, who can be called Spain's next cultural icon after Cervantes. Pablo Picasso was born in 1881 in Malaga, southern Spain, and showed artistic talent from a young age. In his teens, his works were exhibited in galleries. Innovative, revolutionary art. In 1900, Picasso went to Paris, influenced by French Impressionism and Fauvism, gradually forming his unique Cubist style. His masterpiece, Les Demoiselles d'Avignon, broke Renaissance traditions and shocked the Western art world. Soon, Picasso shifted to Surrealism, creating works like Guernica and The Weeping Woman. Picasso enjoyed high prestige during his lifetime, with his works collected by top institutions like the Guggenheim Museum, MoMA in New York, and the Tate in London.
Spaniards cherished him as a national treasure. Picasso's hometown Malaga and Spain's second city Barcelona both have Picasso museums housing thousands of pieces.
Picasso's paintings, sculptures, sketches, and more are available for appreciation and study. Besides Picasso, in the 1930s, Spain also saw top artists like Joan Miró and Salvador Dalí emerge, who with Picasso were called the three giants of Surrealism. So much so that in the public mind, Surrealism is synonymous with Spanish art. Not just in economy and culture, but political changes were also happening. Spaniards had long harbored discontent with monarchical absolutism. As early as 1873, some Spanish elites drove out the king, abolished the monarchy, and established the First Spanish Republic. Unfortunately, under counterattacks from domestic and foreign conservatives, the republic collapsed in less than a year. But Republicans didn't dissolve. They went underground. And after decades of dormancy, following World War I, the worsening situation gave them an opportunity. In spring 1918, the Spanish flu swept across the world, causing at least 21 million deaths, with about 8 million infections in Spain itself, dealing a heavy blow to the economy. In 1929, the global economic crisis from America made things even worse, with factories closing, workers unemployed, and Spain plunging into depression. Facing a series of natural and man-made disasters, King Alfonso XIII was helpless, his prestige plummeting, while Republicans held rallies in cities like Madrid and Barcelona. Massive public protests demanded open elections and political reforms. Alfonso XI was forced to agree. In April 1931, Spain held its first free election in nearly 60 years, with Republicans winning a landslide victory. Seeing the tide had turned, Alfonso XIII voluntarily abdicated, thus abolishing the monarchy and giving birth to the Second Spanish Republic. Sadly, this republic was also short-lived because it was born at the wrong time. Externally, the global economic crisis not only didn't ease but intensified, worsening to its peak by 1932. Countries like Britain, France, America, and Germany drastically cut foreign trade. Spain's foreign trade volume shrunk by over 2/3. Nearly 1 million workers became unemployed, farmers went bankrupt, and Spain had to find ways to save itself. But how could it climb out of this mess? Within the Republican government, opinions diverged, forming left and right wings. The left demanded nationalizing private enterprises, protecting workers' rights, confiscating landlords' land, and improving farmers' conditions. This met fierce opposition from the right wing, composed of capitalists and landlords. The right proposed emulating Italy and Germany to implement fascism. Specifically, that meant suppressing workers' movements to maintain social order, while seizing Jewish property to distribute to the masses. In November 1933, right-wing elements formed the Falange Party and gained support from military strongman Franco. And Franco, the left, including the Communist Party, Socialists, and National Labor Federation, formed the Popular Front to counter it. And in February 1936, the Popular Front won the parliamentary elections and began implementing reforms, causing panic among the right wing. On July 18th that year, Franco launched a military coup in the south, sparking the Spanish Civil War, and from the outset, the situation was unfavorable to the Popular Front.
Franco's rebels, calling themselves the Nationalists, controlled 80% of Spain's armed forces, outnumbering and outgunning the Republican Army of the Popular Front.
For foreign aid, powers like the US, UK, and France disliked Franco's fascist stance.
But they were even warier of the Popular Front's leftist position, fearing it would lean toward the Soviet Union. Comparing both, the powers preferred backing the nationalists. As for Nazi Germany and Italy, they openly supported Franco. Right after the Civil War broke out, Nazi Germany helped Franco airlift 14,000 troops from Morocco to the front lines. Italy went further by sending armored units to aid the nationalists. In April 1937, German bombers attacked the northern Spanish town of Guernica, using incendiaries and explosives that killed 1/3 of its residents.
This sparked international protests.
Spanish artist Picasso created Guernica specifically to document this tragedy.
Despite unfavorable odds, the Republican Army kept fighting.
They held key northern cities like Madrid, Barcelona, and Valencia. Locked in a seesaw battle against southern nationalists, their tenacity inspired leftist forces worldwide. The Soviet Union, aiming to counter fascist expansion, began organizing volunteers. Over 40,000 volunteers joined the Republicans during Spain's 3-year civil war. They formed the International Brigades Against Fascism, with members from 50-plus countries, including Americans, British, French, Chinese, Japanese, and Indians. Among them were notable figures like British writer Orwell, who took up arms. After the war, he wrote Homage to Catalonia, recalling this extraordinary experience. Renowned war photographer Robert Capa joined Republican intelligence, capturing iconic works like The Falling Soldier, an immortal war photography masterpiece showing a fighter's death. American writer Hemingway also participated as a journalist, later writing the novel For Whom the Bell Tolls, based on his experiences. The book's line, "Any man's death diminishes me. Therefore, never send to know for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for thee," became widely celebrated. Of course, familiar Chinese figures were active too, like Canadian Dr. Norman Bethune. He treated wounded alongside Chinese Dr. Bi Dawen, Indian Dr. Cotness, and German Dr. Bethune before heading to China, healing the wounded on the anti-Japanese battlefield. In that sense, the Spanish Civil War was a truly international conflict. And because the Republicans were resisting fascism, the Spanish Civil War is also seen as a prelude to World War II. But the disparity in strength was just too great.
In January 1939, nationalist forces captured Barcelona, capital of Catalonia.
In February, Britain and France recognized Franco's regime. In March, nationalists took Madrid, and Republican resistance essentially collapsed. The Spanish Civil War ended, beginning Franco's 37-year authoritarian rule. What would Spain experience next? Part 6, From Authoritarian Rule to Democratic Transition. I'll recount this history. At least 300,000 died during the Spanish Civil War. Many weren't battlefield casualties, but executed by their own side as suspected traitors. This occurred frequently in both camps. As the book's author states, both sides were equally brutal. After taking power, Franco purged remaining Republican forces, banned other parties, abolished press and assembly freedoms, and tightened social control. Backed by the military, he faced little effective resistance.
Within 3 years, Franco's regime executed about 20,000 people, crushing opposition and cementing authoritarian rule.
In foreign policy, Franco was relatively cautious. In September 1939, Nazi Germany blitzed Poland, starting World War II. In October 1940, Franco met Hitler at the Franco-Spanish border to discuss cooperation. Hitler wanted Spain in the Axis. Franco demanded Gibraltar, taken by Britain in 1740, and French North African colonies, plus German military and economic aid to Spain. But Hitler felt Germany was already strained supporting Italy and couldn't handle Spain too. Facing Franco's steep demands, he refused outright. So Spain never joined the Axis. Still, Franco recruited about 18,000 volunteers forming the Blue Division to fight in the Soviet-German War. Franco hedged his bets. If the Axis won, he'd gain from his contribution. If the Allies won, his limited involvement left room to maneuver. Franco's strategy worked. After Nazi Germany fell, the Allies didn't pursue Franco's responsibility. When the Cold War started, given his anti-Soviet stance, Britain and America actively courted him. In 1953, the U.S. and Spain signed a treaty granting the U.S. military rights to establish air bases in Spain. In 1955, Spain joined the UN. In 1959, U.S. President Eisenhower visited Madrid to meet with Franco. These moves showed Spain's acceptance by the Western Bloc, brought clear benefits. Western capital and technology poured in, boosting social development. In the 1960s, Spain experienced economic prosperity, with booming packaging, shipbuilding, and aviation industries, while tourism became Franco's key focus. In 1959, Spain hosted 4 million tourists. By 1964, it surged to 14 million. Today, tourism remains Spain's pillar industry, contributing 11% of GDP. Objectively, Spaniards' lives improved overall during Franco's 30-plus years of rule. Per capita GDP rose from under 40% of Western Europe's to 80% by 1974, but this didn't change the authoritarian nature of his rule. Franco deemed himself lifelong regent, wielding all powers: executive, legislative, judicial, and military. He appointed key officials, controlled media, and silenced dissent, creating a stifling atmosphere. Meanwhile, urbanization from economic growth transformed Spain from agricultural to industrial, creating massive working and middle classes. They sought better working conditions and demanded political participation. Dissatisfaction with Franco's dictatorship grew, social movements simmered, and reformers like Suarez emerged within his regime. In this context, Franco realized authoritarian rule couldn't last forever. So in 1969, he chose Juan Carlos, grandson of former King Alfonso XI, as his successor. On November 20th, 1975, Franco died at 84, and Juan Carlos became King of Spain. Did this mean Spain would return to monarchy? No. On the 22nd, King Carlos addressed Parliament, announcing Spain would establish an open democratic political system. He immediately appointed reformist Suarez as prime minister to lead the transformation, launching Spain's democratic transition. In November 1976, Suarez drafted a political reform law granting legislative power to Parliament. The following year, Spain held its first free election in 40 years. And so Suarez, Democratic Center Union, won 34.7% of votes, becoming Parliament's largest party, while the left-wing Workers' Socialist Party secured 28.8%, coming in second. Both collaborated on drafting a constitution ratified by national referendum. This established Spain as a parliamentary monarchy. Thus, Spain successfully transitioned to democracy, remarkably smoothly with minimal unrest. Why? The author credits Suarez's skilled statesmanship first. He persuaded Franco supporters to reform voluntarily, avoiding disgrace, simultaneously engaging Democrats, urging restraint. The Socialist Workers' Party heeded Suarez, abandoning radicalism to prevent escalation. King Carlos also deserves recognition. He prioritized reconciling interests over personal power, ensuring stable democratic progress. In 1981, a small, hardcore Francoist coup attempt failed swiftly. This solidified Spain's democratic system. Irreversible popular support grew. As a democracy, Spain integrated deeper into Europe.
In 1982, Spain formally joined NATO.
Joined the EU in 1886. Hosted the 1992 Barcelona Olympics and Seville Expo, showcasing full Western acceptance that boosted Spain's economy. By 2020, Spain's economy ranked 5th in the EU and 13th globally, joining major developed nations. Yet Spain faces two major hidden risks. One, economic. The 2008 global financial crisis spiked unemployment to 27%, crashed housing prices over 30%, and ballooned government debt. By 2020, public debt reached 1.17 times GDP. Could trigger a new crisis at any moment. Another equally thorny issue is regional separatism. As we know, the Kingdom of Spain was formed by merging regions, each with traditions not necessarily aligned with the central government. Catalonia is the most typical example. Historically, Catalonia was the core of the Kingdom of Aragon. After joining Spain, it maintained strong autonomy traditions. During the Spanish Civil War, Catalonia was a stronghold against Franco. FC Barcelona president Josep Sunyol openly supported Republican forces. In August 1936, he was executed by fascists. Post-war, Franco stripped Catalonia's autonomy. Locals channeled emotions into football, making Barça their spiritual symbol. Meanwhile, Madrid as the capital symbolized Franco's regime. Thus, every Barcelona-Real Madrid match felt like heroic resistance to Catalans, making these politically charged games intensely passionate. This sentiment continues today with El Clasico matches drawing massive attention and massive. After democratic transition, Catalonia regained autonomy, while separatist demands grew. Catalonia's independence drive has economic roots too. Locals note the region has 16% of Spain's population, but attracts 25% foreign investment and generates 20% GDP. Independence would mean no central taxes, surely making them wealthier. In 2017, Catalonia held an independence referendum claiming 90% support.
Naturally, Spain's government refused recognition.
Currently lacking international support amid economic downturn, Catalonia's debt-ridden government needs Spanish bailouts. The movement has waned, but remains a latent threat. Where it goes remains uncertain. Well, how did Spain become Spain? That concludes the next episode's listening notes. Below the audio, we'll see you next time.